Full story. Accepting my hubby's long-lost sister move in. I ended up shocking him with this secret. I discovered my husband's affair, but it turned out to be with his long-lost sister. Eventually, I fell in love with her and left him. For months, my husband had been acting strangely. He was protective of his phone and lied about his whereabouts, which led me to suspect he was having an affair. One night, he said he was going to his best friend's house, even though I knew his best friend was out of the country. I decided to track his location, and it turned out he was at a bar. I walked in bracing myself for the worst. I scanned the room looking for him, and eventually found him seated at the back with a woman sharing a beer and laughing. The sight hit me like a punch in the gut. I stood there heartbroken watching them as they enjoyed each other's company. Then my husband turned his head in my direction. My heart stopped. In panic, I crouched down behind the nearest table trying to hide. Thankfully, he wasn't looking at me. He was talking to the waitress, asking for another beer. I watched as his attention returned to the woman who I assumed was his affair partner. I quickly left the bar, my mind racing. I went home, threw myself into bed, and cried myself to sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard my husband come through the door, stumbling into the bedroom and falling onto the bed. He noticed I was awake and apologized, giving me a kiss on the forehead. He asked how my night had been, and I casually asked about his evening at his best friend's house. He said it had been great, full of fun. He seemed oddly cheerful, which only made my frustration worse. He asked if I was hungry or needed anything, but I told him no. I felt a deep bitterness. How could he be so sweet after lying to me? He'd been with another woman at a bar, and now he was acting like nothing had happened. I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't stop replaying the image of him with her. What did she have that I didn't? Yes, she was beautiful, but it was the way he looked at her. He had never looked at me like that. He had lied to me and returned home with an attitude that made it seem like everything was perfectly fine. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a surprise: 2 eggs over, easy some bacon, and a piece of toast. On the plate beside the toast, it read, "Happy anniversary, my love." My husband had made me breakfast in bed, but he was nowhere to be found. I got out of bed to brush my teeth, and that's when my husband slipped into the bathroom behind me. He kissed me on the cheek and said, "Good morning." I pulled away, feeling distant. He asked me what was wrong, and that's when I told him I knew about the affair. I told him I had followed his location and knew he hadn't been at his best friend's house. I knew he had been at the bar with another woman. He looked at me stunned and confused before asking what I was talking about. I explained everything. I told him I knew about the bar, the woman, everything. He paused for a moment, then started to laugh. He laughed so hard that he could barely breathe. I shoved him and stormed out of the bathroom, but he followed me, still laughing. "Sit down," he said, still out of breath. "Let me explain." I didn't want to hear it, but I sat down in the living room. He followed me and asked me to give him just 30 seconds to explain. I didn't want to, but I agreed, needing answers. He started asking if I remembered the night we went to that Italian restaurant, the night he drank 4 drinks without touching any bread. I remember I said, though, I didn't understand the connection. He explained that during that night, he had talked about his long-lost sister. That was when everything started to make sense. He said the woman I had seen at the bar was his long-lost sister, Jill. They had been separated when they were children because their mother couldn't afford to keep both of them. My husband had stayed with her while Jill had been sent to live with her aunt halfway across the country. They had lost contact when their mother couldn't afford the phone bills, and after the aunt passed away, they had no way of getting in touch with each other. Over the years, Jill had searched for him but couldn't find him or their mother. Finally, she managed to track him down through state records and found him on Facebook. They had messaged for a while before deciding to meet at that bar. It made sense, but I still didn't fully believe him. If that was really his sister, why did he lie to me about going to his best friend's house? I asked him why he hadn't told me the truth about it. He said he didn't want to introduce me to Jill unless they got along, but I told him he could have just told me instead of lying and letting me find out on my own. He apologized and promised not to lie again, no matter how small the lie was. Still, I didn't believe him. I insisted that he show me the messages between them. He pulled out his phone and showed me the conversation between him and Jill. They had been talking about meeting up after reconnecting. I still had doubts. How did he know for sure it was his sister? He said he had seen her last name on her driver's license when they were at the bar. Everything checked out, but I needed more proof. I told him I wanted to meet her. He agreed and texted her to meet up later that night. We had dinner plans that night for our anniversary, so I told him that meeting Jill would have to wait until after we had our meal. It was already getting close to noon, and we had a couple's massage booked for 1 p.m. So we had to hurry. The car ride to the spa was tense. I couldn't stop thinking about the lies and the scenes at the bar. But my husband, sensing the tension, broke the silence by asking how things were going at work. I replied that everything was fine. He said that was good and seemed genuinely happy I was doing well. We arrived at the spa, and despite the tension, I tried to relax during our massage. Afterward, I felt a bit more at ease, though not entirely. My husband seemed much more relaxed than I was. We left the spa and headed back home to get ready for dinner. On the ride, my husband chatted more, and I tried my best to engage with him, forcing a few laughs to keep things light. We arrived home, and my husband settled on the couch while I went to the bedroom to pick out something to wear. I debated between a tight, classy black dress and a long red wine-colored one. Before I knew it, it was 6 p.m., and I was heading back into the bedroom. My husband looked great in his suit, and I grabbed my purse as we left for the restaurant. As we drove, my thoughts drifted back to the lies to the woman at the bar. My stomach sank as I thought about how he had kept her a secret from me. I tried to brush the feeling away and focus on the present, but it was hard. We arrived at the restaurant, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Towards the end of dinner, my husband's phone buzzed. It was her Jill. He flipped the phone over and read the message. Jill was asking where we were. He told her we were at dinner and would be over soon. I asked if she knew I was coming with him, and he told me she didn't. That made me angry. Why hadn't he told Jill I'd be with him? I told him to go ahead, get the check, and let's leave. I was furious, feeling like our anniversary was completely ruined by this woman who seemed to have a hold on my husband. I walked to the car, trying to keep my emotions in check, but by the time we got to the bar, I was feeling anxious. When we finally arrived, my husband spotted Jill sitting at the bar, talking to the bartender. She had already bought 2 shots, and when I approached, she looked surprised. My husband then introduced me to her. She smiled warmly and said it was nice to meet me. She had brown hair and striking green eyes, and her smile was beautiful. We all sat together, enjoying drinks. As we talked and laughed, I began to feel guilty for how I had treated Jill in my head. She wasn't the person I had imagined. She seemed kind, and I felt bad for thinking the worst of her. My husband didn't seem bothered by anything. He was happy that we were getting along, and he kept commenting on how great it was that the 2 most important women in his life could coexist peacefully. Jill told us she was a nurse and was planning on moving to our town soon. She asked if it would be all right to stay with us for a while. She had wanted to live close to family for years. Considering how much my husband had missed her and the fact that we had space, I agreed. After we said our goodbyes and hugged Jill, gave both my husband and me her personal number. We drove home, and that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at me and the way her laugh made me feel. The next morning, my husband and I talked about arranging Jill's move. She was staying at a hotel, so we decided to help her move her things. It was a long drive to where she had been staying, but instead of driving ourselves, my husband suggested we hire a moving company. I agreed, and that's what we did. It's what? A couple of weeks later, Jill had moved in with us. She was looking for a job, and in the meantime, we had become close friends. We spent a lot of time together shopping, trying new restaurants, getting our nails done. She had quickly become my best friend. One night during dinner, my husband asked Jill how she was liking her stay and if she needed anything. She looked at me and smiled. "I have everything I need right here," she said, making my heart skip a beat. My husband seemed pleased to hear that. As the months went by, I found myself spending more time with Jill and less with my husband. We grew even closer, and my feelings for her deepened. I began to notice the little things about her, her laugh, the way she smiled at me, the way she made me feel when we were together. I started to clean the house more, cook more, and I even felt like I had a better attitude. One night, while lying in bed with my husband, I began to think about Jill. I wondered if there was more to our bond than just friendship. I imagined a life where we could be together, but it seemed impossible. I had never told my husband I was bisexual, and now I was falling for his sister. I had to know if she felt the same way, so I decided to ask her. After a day of shopping together, we went to a nearby restaurant to eat. As we waited for our order, I asked her if she liked me. She laughed and said, of course she liked me. Then I asked her again if she liked me beyond just friendship. That's when she leaned in, kissed me, and asked, "Does that answer your question?" I had no words. As she kissed me, everything that had been in my head became real. The scenarios I had imagined of us together flashed before my eyes. I knew I had to talk to her more to explore what was happening between us. But for now, we decided to keep it a secret. Months later, when my husband was at work, Jill and I started an affair. It was intense and beautiful. We had stolen moments in the bedroom, in the kitchen, and even in the attic when we had the house to ourselves. We were inseparable, and our love grew stronger with every passing day. One afternoon, we chose the living room for some private time. In the middle of it, we heard the front door open. My heart stopped. We turned around to see my husband standing there staring at us in shock. His briefcase dropped to the floor. He asked what was going on, and we had no words to explain it. Why, he asked, tears in his eyes. "How could you do this to me?" He started crying, and I tried to comfort him, but he pushed me away. He said he had a hard day at work and had come home early only to find this. Jill wrapped a sheet around herself and went to talk to him. I could hear them arguing in the guest bedroom. He was furious, accusing her of betraying him. He yelled that he wished she had never come into our lives, that she should have stayed in the past. I decided to intervene, walking in to stop the fight. I told him not to talk to Jill like that, but he turned his anger on me. He called me an ungrateful wife, said I had betrayed him with his own sister. He was disgusted by the situation and told me I had thrown everything away. The following day, he served me divorce papers. I showed them to Jill, and we both laughed. I told her she was finally getting what she wanted, and she agreed. At the divorce hearing, my husband looked like a wreck. His hair was greasy, his face haggard, and dark circles under his eyes. The man I once knew was gone. I felt a twinge of guilt for what had happened, but Jill kept me grounded. A few months after the divorce, Jill and I were living happily together. She found a great nursing job, and we continued our relationship openly. There was no need to hide anymore. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.